friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. You can hear the bandsaw going in the background. That's just how it's going to be from now on, now that I have some help in the shop. Anyway, I wasn't going to show you this mandolin at all. It's a Wynn mandolin. I was just going to do a setup, but then I started noticing issues, and I thought, well, you know, what the heck, I might as well show it to you. First of all, I took the tail piece off, and the strap button was in here, and it's very loose. It was only held in by the pressure of the tail piece pulling up on it, which I think I'm going to have to change that. I don't think I can live with that. But then when I took the tail piece off, then I noticed that these, like, it looks like this one might be a screw, but it's ground off below the surface. And this one feels like a stud, but it may be a screw that broke off. I don't know. I don't really know what we're dealing with here. I hate to take them out because they may be structural. You know, they were probably put in there for a reason. So I think what I'm going to do is just, you know, this one's sticking up by more than a 1/16 of an inch. I think what I'm going to do is just carefully grind them off, put a little filler on them, and darken it up and call it good. For the record, I don't think this one is a screw now that I've cleaned the dirt out of it. It just looks like the end of a nail that's been pinched off. So here we go. Well, now they're both down below surface, at least, just a little bit, just very slightly below surface. The next issue that I want to address is the top is separated down this crack here, and I can see it moving. If I push really hard, I can see it moving. It's under stress. There's no way that I think that glue is going to really hold that well. See, the longest clamp I have here is this one, and it's not long enough for a mandolin. So I'd have to make a special clamp or just use those squeeze clamps. I've got some of those. Maybe we can use that and see what that looks like. One of the problems I have with this crack is that it may have a lot of dirt in it. I've already used a regular paintbrush on it and tried to clean it out, but I'm going to take this air hose and see if I can't blow it. That's about as good as we're going to be able to do with it. Once again, the easy fix for this would be to use super glue. And the super glue, the good thing about the super glue is that it would also fill in the finish. I would do that. I just don't think the super glue is going to hold this joint under stress like it is. The first thing that I like to do on a joint like this is wet it down, mainly because it acts like greasing the skids. If you're familiar with the term greasing the skids, well, what that does is the capillary action of water kind of greases the skids for the glue. When I put the glue in here, it'll slide right in because that water's already made a path. It'll help suck the glue down in here. Everybody says use a suction cup, use a syringe, all that kind of thing, and all of those things are helpful. Don't get me wrong, I do use them. I've got a suction cup right here, and I may use it right here, right now. But I like to do this first. Then I take the nozzle of this and act like a syringe with the nozzle and literally force the glue down in there, put it on there, and that really does force the glue in there. I guarantee you it'll be probably coming through on the other side. Once again, I take the brush. Now I just want the brush damp now. I don't want it wet. And then I want to force that glue down in there with this paintbrush, and believe it or not, that will work it down in there where it's way down inside there. Odds are I don't need to use the suction cup at all. Now I'm going to just take my little camera and see if we can't prove that, to see if the glue is on the inside. Maybe you can see on the screen there's a big drop of glue that's squeezed out, but I can also see glue along this crack along here. What I'm going to do now is take the suction cup and work its way down through here and see if that helps, if I see any more glue coming out. Well, I don't really see much more coming out, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's not more. But I think we got pretty good glue coverage there. I'm going to call that good. Okay, I'm going to wash off the surface here, get the glue off. Now the key thing is, when we put a clamp on here, do we see it squeeze out the top? And I hope we do. Yep. Not squeezing out a lot, but it's squeezing out. It's about as good as we can do. If I squeeze it much harder, I'm afraid I'll break something. I would like to have more pressure on that, but it's just under tension. I'm hoping the tight bond will be strong enough to hold that, but to be perfectly honest with you, with a crack there where it's not squeezed completely tight together, I can't guarantee it. I think it'll probably be okay. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, I worked on this mandolin a little bit off camera, not because I didn't feel like you should see it, but because there was people in here talking and stuff, and I was just working while they were talking. So anyway, it wouldn't have been very good filming. What I did was I took wet or dry sandpaper, sanded this all down. I also filled this crack a little bit more with a little bit of filler and dyed it black. Dyed these other spots black, filled them and dyed these other spots black. Sanded it all down pretty good with 600 and 1200. So it's pretty good shape. I'm just going to see now what the semi-chrome polish will do to this and see if we can, you know, just hand polish this top out and make it look pretty good. I've got a damp, you know, little shop towel here, and gonna try this out, see how good it does. See if this is, I think this will be sufficient for everything. Don't really think I'll have to go to a buffing wheel, but I might. I might add, I just got a new time clock for keeping track of my time while I'm working on instruments, and you'll hear that thing click every once in a while in the background. So it's just a new addition to my videos. Everybody needs to hear a click every once in a while. So about every minute you'll hear a click. That's what it is. It's the time clock. I think this is going to make the top look pretty good compared to where it was at. It was pretty rough. Well, to my eye, that looks a lot better. You know, it could be better than that yet, but that's a vast improvement over the way it came in. We'll go over it one more time with the polish, and that'll make it look pretty decent, I think. Pretty presentable. May not be 100%, but it's pretty nice compared to the way it did look. Yeah, you can still see, obviously, the crack and that kind of thing, but it's sealed, and I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore. We'll just go ahead and put a little Renaissance wax on there to toughen that back up. Again, in my opinion, these paste waxes are far superior to using liquid polishes. I don't recommend liquid polishes at all. At all. And if you wonder why I'm so against them, it's because they will react to your plastics, make them brittle. They will make your pick guards curl up over time. You know, you'll never hear that from the manufacturers, of course, because that's their thing. But I'm telling you, I've seen enough of it to know that's what causes the problem. So you can do what you wish. Use liquid polishes all you want. Some people say, I've been using them for years, never had a problem. And I would say that's 100% true. I don't have an issue with that, but there will be a time when you put enough of it on your pick guard will curl up. So do what you want, but you've been warned. Now that looks pretty darn nice compared to the way that came in. You know, it's not perfect, but sure is a lot better than it was. Okay, we can move on beyond that now and just do the setup. That's what he's here for. As always, before I start doing a fret job, I always look down the neck and see what I see, and it looks really flat. This is a very flat fretboard, so I don't think we have any issues with underbow or overbow or anything, at least not right now without the strings on it. So we're going to level this out. This has large frets in it. I'm not a fan, as you know, of the large fret thing. in my opinion, it just holds your strings up off the fretboard higher, which just hurts your fingers more, which, you know, some people say, but they're much faster to play. Well, that may be the trade-off, but I don't care for them myself. As you know, I have such delicate little fingers. I don't know if it'll show up in the camera, but I'll just let you look at them slowly there across, and you can see where they're getting filed and not getting filed, and where they're flat and where they're round and all that. And that just means those, I mean, in general, it's flat from one end to the other, but on each individual fret, there's a lot of issues. I would say when the guy built this, he didn't get them all driven in good and level. That's what I'd say. You might be able to tell that, like, this fret here hasn't had much filing yet. This fret hasn't had much filing. This end of this fret here hasn't been filed at all right here. So there's just a lot of inconsistencies in these frets, maybe more than I think I've ever seen before. So, you know, I'm just going to keep filing until I see them all kind of level out. Even though it's gliding pretty good now, that just means that the high frets are gone. The low frets we still haven't reached yet. I think we're getting close enough that we can call that good enough. Just take and clean it up here and just take one last look at it now. In case you don't know, or you know, since I kind of started in the middle on this video, this is a Wynn mandolin. I believe the man's name was John Wynn. He's from somewhere near the Springfield, Missouri area. I don't really know exactly where. I believe I met his son years ago. He builds a decent mandolin. Most of the mandolins I've seen of his, I'll just be perfectly honest with you, have been a little on the crude side. This one, in my opinion, is a little bit on the crude side, but not bad. I mean, I've seen much worse. So it's a pretty decent mandolin, and I think it's probably going to sound fine once we get her all set up here. I'm just trying to clean her up and make her look a little better. Now we're going to recrown all the frets. I've got the guitar round over file here rather than the mandolin round over file because these are about guitar size frets in my opinion. Got them all recrowned where they look pretty good, and now we're just going to polish them up with this 600 grit sandpaper, and this is what makes them look real nice. We got some boiled linseed oil, and we're going to town on this fretboard. But there we go. We've got a pretty decent looking fretboard now compared to the way that thing looked a little while ago. Man, it was rough. I'm not crazy at all about this end pin hole and this plastic end pin that was in there. It's totally loose, floppy round. I'm going to plug the hole and put a regular steel end pin with a screw in there. It'll be much solider, and I just think it'll last longer and be much better. So here we go. I'm going to put some glue on this, rub it around a little bit. I'm going to put some glue in the hole and take a paintbrush and paint it around a little bit. Just a hair proud. I'll have to cut that off yet, but that'll plug the hole up really good and solid. I took my little finger plane and planed that off nice and smooth, so it's nice and flush with the outside now. We don't have to worry about coloring it or anything because the tailpiece is going to cover it up, and then the new end button will screw into it. I'm not going to put the new end button on there until I get the tailpiece in place, and then we'll drill the hole in the proper place. We could put something smaller in there, I think, and do better, but these holes have been wallered out for that. This whole end thing is kind of bent up, actually, because of that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I don't know how to explain it, but there's like a lip around this one, and this one's kind of sunk in here, and this one's not too bad, but it's just not very good. So, and these holes are huge. It's just bad when stuff is done like that. I think I'm going to go ahead and fix it. It bugs me. So I'm going to fill these holes and put proper size screws in here. These holes are absolutely huge. They really are. It's hard to show this on camera how big these holes are, but the end of that paintbrush will go down in there. So I mean, they're that big around. So that's pretty big. That's good. That's nice and smooth, and we'll be able to put some regular screws in there now that will hold real well. I know you can't really see how this is dented and malformed in there, but I'm going to straighten it out. This is a plastic weighted hammer for leather working, actually. It's better. It's not perfect because this should have a little bit of a concave shape to it. It does fit pretty good now. The screws will pull it in the rest of the way. It's a little bit mal-fitting, but not bad compared to the way it was anyway. So we'll find some good screws now that we can use for this. Well, maybe you can see the difference in the size of the screws. Now, I'm not saying it has to be these small screws like that, but somewhere between this one and this one would be okay, but this is just way too big. And so this is the best screw that I've got at the moment, and it looks like it will be fine because it does protrude through there more than 1/4 of an inch. And with the holes all filled there, we'll drill appropriate size holes, and this should hold it just fine. And then we'll also have the button that'll be screwed in through here too, so it'll have plenty of holding power, and it's just much better than these great big clunky screws. Okay, I got her good and square and straight, centered, so now we'll drill the next hole. They had a bushing, or this felt bushing back under here. I'm not going to put that on there till I decide we really need it. It was eating into the finish, believe it or not, and kind of messed up the finish. So it doesn't look like we need it right now, and I'm going to wait and see, you know, to vote on that later. Now we'll get us a little button and put on here. Well, I fixed a myriad of issues on this mandolin. I just started putting the strings on here. I got the bridge feet fitting up real good. Got my deer antler saddle on here. But I can tell, I don't like to make a new nut unless there's a problem with the nut. Well, in this case, there is a problem. The strings are just too low. The first string I'm tightening up is just rubbing on the first fret already. Let's see here at the 7th fret. It's still a little low. Maybe I'll raise it up a little bit. Maybe it'll clear, but it just seems awfully low. That's about it right there. I have a feeling it's still gonna... You can hear it buzzing. You can hear it buzzing off of that first fret. So that's just not gonna work. So we're gonna have to redo that. I was hoping that lowering those frets enough would have taken care of this nut issue here being too low, but it didn't. So I'm just cleaning up the end of this so that I get rid of all the old glue that's on here, that we want a good straight square area. Yeah, it looks like it would be a good pattern, so I'll just use it as my pattern to make the new one. I wasn't real happy with the string spacing on this one anyway. The strings were kind of far apart, but yet then they the distance between the pairs of strings was not big enough, and so it just wasn't real good. So we'll just make a better one. Well, I ain't gonna lie to you, that was a little more trouble than it should have been to make that. I ended up having to make 2 of them. I made a little mistake, and so I had to make it again. This neck is a little narrower here than what my standard has always been, and this pretty much fits any neck I've ever run up against, but this is definitely a little narrower than it should be, I think. So that's going to make it harder to make these strings just right. I'm going to have to work on that a little bit. It's going to be a little tight, I can tell that. I'm going to have to kind of eyeball adjust them a little bit here. Yeah, it looks pretty darn good there. That's like 10 times better than what it looked like before, in my opinion. Okay, so now I'm not going to bore you with me cutting these slots, but I'm going to cut the slots to the right depth, and we'll bring you back. Okay, the next issue, I've got just these 2 strings set at the right height and tuned up. I don't have these 2 pairs yet, just the base ones. And just with those up at pitch, I'm looking down the neck and I'm starting to notice more underbow than I think it needs. So I'm going to take this off of here and see what the truss rod looks like. Because I have a feeling the truss rod's either very loose or there's a problem, and I'm not sure which. Well, I must be psychic, because I said either the truss rod's loose or there's a problem. Can you see a problem? It looks to me like it's been epoxied over. Holy mackerel. I don't even know what to think of that. Holy mackerel. Wow. I don't know what to make of that. I seriously don't. I don't know what that is. It looks like it's been epoxied in. It's solid all the way around. It looks like glue across the top or epoxy. It's just solid. There's nothing there. We're going to put that back on and pretend we didn't see that, because I don't know where to go with that. You know, you don't know why that was done, and you could really be opening up a can of worms there. So I'm going to leave that can of worms shut. Holy mackerel. There's not much that intimidates me, but that kind of does. Ain't that special? That's all I can say about that. We'll go back and set up these other pairs of strings and see where it ends up. Well, I believe we've done all the damage to this thing that we can do. My goodness, it put up a fight, I'll just flat tell you. You know, we had a lot of issues down here. We fixed all that. We had issues here, which it just didn't want to work out real good. We got that big split down the middle. The truss rod is epoxied in or something. I can't even figure out what that is. It's not adjustable at this point. I leveled all the frets, recrowned them, oiled the fretboard, made a new nut, made a new saddle. Got the action real nice. The action is just perfect. At the 7th fret, it'll hold a pick. And at this, fret here at the 1st fret, it's a tight 18 thousandths. So it plays real good, and it actually sounds real good. I will tell you, though, that there are still a couple of issues that I don't like about the thing, and this is these tuning keys aren't put in evenly. You can see this one is actually below the peg head, so your fingers hit the peg head when you're turning it. On this side, it's extended. It's plenty far out. So it wasn't, made with the greatest of care, if you will. So there's a number of issues. But it seems to be okay right at the moment. I was concerned about this top crack maybe opening up again after I put the tension on it. It does seem like it's holding. I'm going to hold it overnight to make real sure. But we'll go ahead and play it for you and let you hear what it sounds like. was my version of Nashville Blues, played in D minor. It's got a pretty decent sound. It doesn't sound bad at all, really. And that's what it is. It's a Wynn mandolin. Like I said, most of the ones I've seen have been just a little bit on the crude side, to be perfectly honest with you. Most of them sound okay. A few have had soft tops, and that's kind of what I think the problem is here. I don't think this top was maybe carved correctly, or maybe just wasn't put together very well. I don't know. But overall, it sounds pretty good, and I imagine it'll hold fine now, the way it's set up right now. So I hope the customer will be real happy. We at least buffed out that top where it looks like a halfway decently cared for instrument now. Hope you enjoyed that look at a Wynn mandolin. Thank you to all my patrons on Patreon, and thank you for watching.